everyone. This is Rick Sapio. Welcome, BFS members, to another Principles and Tactics podcast. Hope you're all doing well. I love saying this at the beginning of every call. At BFS, we believe that being an entrepreneur and creating value is one of the purest forms of self-expression and fulfillment in the world. And our objective is for you to be the best entrepreneur and business person that you could possibly be. That's what we want. That's what I want. And hopefully that's what you want. We want you to employ the decision-making lens that we talk about all the time: simplicity, probability, and leverage. How are you using these as operating values in your business and personal life? That's a question. And that's a question you should talk to your employees about. That's a question you should talk to your kids about. That's a question you should ask all the people around you. How do I have more simplicity in this chaotic world? How do I increase the probability that what I'm doing is going to yield the stated objective? When you put everything in that context, i.e., is making this decision increasing or decreasing the probability of hitting that objective? And when you put things in that frame, it changes how you think about that and ultimately what you do. And then the last is leverage. Leverage is about getting done more or doing more with less time and less resource. So an example is calendaring. An example is using technology correctly. When you think about the most successful companies on earth, they're just really, really good at leveraging their habits, their rituals, their calendars, their processes. And you've got to think about this as an operating value. That's how you're going to make this work, this way of thinking. All right, so we have the BFS frame. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. It's really more of an intro. If you don't have your frame solidified and made permanent in your business, then you're not going to have simplicity, probability, and leverage. So the BFS business frame is a clear purpose statement, which is very short, a catalyzing statement from that purpose statement, your values, which are very clear, also a number one value. As you know, my number one value is simplicity. The fourth category of the business frame is your real business strategy. What business are you in? Who is your ideal customer? And how do you get your customers, both from a marketing perspective and from a delivery of your product? So how do you do that? How do you market? How do you deliver your product? The next category is your long-term SMART objectives. And the last category is quarterly objectives that align with your SMART long-term objectives, that align with your strategy, that align with your values, that align with your catalyzing statement, and ultimately it all aligns with your purpose. So the business frame is something we've been using since day one. And the companies that really do this right, it's shocking how quick the results happen. I love saying slow down to speed up, as opposed to going really fast to slow down. And most companies, they're just so crazy busy, they don't get anywhere. But the companies that actually stop, slow down, get into a war room, thoughtfully fill out this frame, all of a sudden they're rapidly growing. About 5 weeks ago, I spent the day with a company in Austin, Texas, and we solidified their frame. And it's amazing. They have accomplished more in the last 4 weeks than they did in the last 2 years. That's what the CEO told me, just because they slowed down. So that's the importance of the business frame. All right, so I want to read a couple of quotes to you before I get to the principle of the month. This is a quote from Lord Chesterfield. Know the true value of time. Snatch, seize, and enjoy every moment of it. No idleness, no laziness, no procrastination. Never put off till tomorrow what you can do today. So that's my quote for you today. All right, so I'm flipping to our module 27 in the program. And the title of it is Using Key Performance Indicators. Key performance indicators are measurements of an activity. So let me just read so you know exactly what I'm talking about. In this module, we demonstrate how to use KPIs to dig deeper into ways to fully leverage your time, your business, and this program. In order to really be accountable to your business, you need to have some freedom. And it's interesting, freedom was a blog that I wrote about recently. You could take a look on the website where the blogs are. By effectively using KPIs, you'll have additional freedom to focus on the more important aspects of your business and your life. KPIs force you to manage and measure the most important things, which allow you to not chase the blinky, shiny objects that may be clamoring for your attention. So, by having KPIs, you have freedom. I love what Voltaire said. He said, until the rules are clearly defined, creativity cannot flourish. And when I think about that quote, I realize that you and I could sit down and have a conversation. We could brainstorm about what you want to do with your life. But if you added key performance indicators, or you added a lot more clarity to it and a lot more specifics, it's easier to, in my view, to brainstorm. So if I said to you, hey, let's talk about a new business you want to start. What do you want to start? Well, I don't know. But if I said instead, let's brainstorm a new business that it has to do $1 million a year in revenue. All the revenue has to be recurring revenue. It has to be using your existing client base. It has to be local. It can't require us to spend money on real estate or fixed expenses. Now all of a sudden you could go, okay, and it allows you to have more creativity. KPIs are kind of the same thing. So one of the things that we talk about often in the program is each one of your employees and you yourself should have a crystal clear list of your responsibilities inside your business. What happens too often in small companies is people aren't really clear what their responsibilities are. So sit down with each one of your employees and sit down by yourself or with your advisors and say, what are my areas of responsibility? So my areas of responsibility are maintaining the business frame, for example. My areas of responsibility are making sure there's enough cash in the bank. My areas of responsibility are overall strategy of the business. My areas of responsibility are recruiting. And now, once each one of your employees is clear on all their areas of responsibility, then you can establish key performance indicators inside of each one of those. We advise in the program that all of your employees should have softer aspects of their responsibilities. For example, I think it's important for an employee to be responsible for a value of your business. So if you have 7 values, you can assign them out to 7 different employees individually and say, you're responsible for the value of simplicity. Now you start thinking creatively about what KPI can I put around the value of simplicity. So imagine this. Imagine the freedom that you would get if each one of your employees knew what all their areas of responsibility were and is clearly spelled out. And each one of those areas of responsibility had a key performance indicator associated with it. And it doesn't matter how soft it is. Let's just say, because I get pushback on this. People go, well, how do you put a KPI around a soft responsibility? I'll demonstrate it right now here. So let's say, using my example, that one of your employees has the value of simplicity. Okay? A key performance indicator could be every month, one of their objectives needs to be to simplify a process of the company. Each month, one process. So now over the course of the year, that employee has the responsibility of simplifying 12 different processes. So you see how easy this is. I think when you do things from this mindset and you're consciously applying it, you get total and complete freedom, which at the end of the day is the purpose of this module, module 27 in year 3. And year 3 is about accountability. So, I came up with a list of questions to ask in the module. I'm just going to say them right now as I'm talking to you. What KPIs do you think are important for client retention? What KPIs could you establish relative to honoring all your values? What KPIs can you establish around your long-term business objectives? What long-term oriented KPIs can you install to prevent any long-term disasters? What specific KPIs are needed in sales, marketing, or finance? Can you establish KPIs around counting, selling, and making? And counting, selling, and making, it's an interesting way of, when you establish a new business, it's a kind of an old way of thinking, but you really need to have three functions in any business. You need a counter, a seller, and a maker. So every product, you need an accountant. You need somebody responsible for the inside, that making sure that everything's being counted correctly. You need a salesperson, a sales function. If sales aren't happening, you can't have a business. And ultimately, you need to make some type of product. So every company needs to have these three bases covered: counting, selling, and making. And then lastly, can you think of KPIs around simplicity, probability, and leverage? Now, when you think about this inside your business, now move it to your personal life. Recently, there was a New York Times article that talked about a successful marriage and family has a lot of accountability and rituals built inside of a simple framework. And the article talked about having a simple matrix for grading your marriage and your relationship with your kids inside of certain areas. So think about putting KPIs in your relationship. How many date nights are you having a year? How many times are you meeting your kids one-on-one? How many times are you working out with your kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So just an interesting way of thinking about life and creating more freedom. Now, most people would argue with me that adding this level of accountability creates less freedom. But think about a company like Southwest Airlines. It's just an easy example. It might be overused. But when they started from ground zero, and they were competing against the biggest companies in the world. And they added very simple values and very simple KPIs. And they stuck with those values and those KPIs through thick and thin. And I think other airlines kept trying different things. They tried different pricing. They tried different planes. They tried different routes. They tried different levels of employees. They tried different brands. But Southwest stuck to its knitting. And ultimately it got to the point where it could then compete with the biggest airlines in the world with long-haul flights, and now even international flights. So very interesting. If you stick to your knitting and you do what we're suggesting on this podcast, I think it leads to freedom. It's funny, one of the KPIs my wife and I have is we have date night every Monday night at 7:30. Since we don't have to think about it, it adds freedom. And I'm recording this on a Tuesday. We had a great night last night, 7:30. The kids knew, the babysitter knew, the restaurant knew. It just made it easy. I don't have to call her and go, hey, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Should we do it tonight or tomorrow night? Do we have a babysitter? If you take that level of thinking and that level of KPI, it adds freedom. I'm 100% convinced of it. And a very long time ago, Voltaire said it too. All right, so that was the principle of the month this month. Successful people and businesses have patterns to follow. And all we are is another set of pattern to follow. So I want to ask you a question. How are you doing the BFS program? And what I mean by that is, are you taking advantage of everything we offer? These calls, the boot camps, the summits, the recordings, the accountability group materials, which are free on the website, the implementation guides, the opportunity to connect with people inside the program to get coaching back and forth. So if you have any questions, please email us at info@businessfinishingschool.com. I also want to tell you about the upcoming summit. It's our 16th event. It's in Dallas, Texas. It's the 27th of September, 2019. It will be our biggest event yet. It will be our best lineup of speakers. We're continuing to promote in business and your personal life simplicity, probability, and leverage. And this is a never-ending thing in my life. It's something I work on every day. It's something many of the members of the program work on every day. And when you get better and better and better at that, you get more and more freedom. And I'll leave you with that thought. Have a phenomenal day. This is Rick Sapio signing off.